In healthcare and the field of medicine, moral injury often arises when clinicians are forced to act against their deeply held values due to systemic constraints. This can leave people feeling guilt, shame, and ultimately like they've been betrayed by the system and the people operating within it who are making the decisions that are affecting them day to day. Welcome to The PA is In, the show created by PAs for PAs, where codependency with your supervising physician is a thing of the past, optimal team practice is the future, and physician associate has taken the place of physician assistant as the professional title of choice. I'm Tracy Bingaman, and I'm obsessed with redefining what success as a PA looks like and what it feels like. Here you'll find the mindset shifts, systems, and processes I use to escape healthcare burnout and integrate my work into my life. Work-life balance is a myth, and an integrated life where you thrive professionally, not a balancing act, is the goal here. My mission is to help you to grow into a unicorn PA who loves their job, has abundant energy, time to spare, and work-optional financial freedom. The PA is in. Welcome to The PA is In, the podcast dedicated to helping PAs redefine success, find work-life balance, increase their income, and achieve that elusive sustainability in their careers. I'm your host, Tracy Bingaman. Today, we're diving into a topic that is incredibly important, yet often misunderstood inside of the healthcare profession, and that, my friend, is moral injury. We're going to unpack what moral injury is, how it differs from burnout, and why recognizing this distinction is crucial for our well-being and professional longevity. Moral injury can occur when healthcare professionals are forced to act in ways that contradict their moral or ethical beliefs due to external pressures or systemic constraints. Unlike burnout, which is often characterized by physical or emotional exhaustion, moral injury stems from a deep sense of betrayal or moral conflict. It's tough to isolate one from the other, as moral injury, especially that which occurs repeatedly, chronically, again and again and again over time, can easily lead to burnout. And in my experience, when you're burned out, it can be really hard to distinguish what's healthy and reasonable and what demands the healthcare system is placing on you that are absolutely absurd, as is in the case of moral injury. I can remember when I was deeply burned out and I felt the demands being placed on me were jeopardizing my health and the health and safety of my patients. And I stood there scratching my head thinking, is it just me? It left me wondering if I was the only one questioning what was being asked of us as a healthcare team and as providers. In this episode, we'll explore the difference between moral injury and burnout and discuss practical strategies for addressing moral injury in your life and in your career. Whether you're experiencing these challenges firsthand or supporting colleagues who are, this episode aims to provide some clarity and a touch of hope. You'll walk away understanding moral injury with the skills to identify if it's happening to you and with some tools for what you can do about it if it is. So let's dive in and start this important conversation on moral injury. If you're often freezing at work, you need Scrubmates, the insulating underscrub to treat your shivering. Like a bear hugger for providers, these underscrubs will keep you warm even in the coldest environments. Scrubmates offers a sleeveless option approved for the OR, as well as long-sleeved options for those who work elsewhere. They even have a patent-pending pocket for your valuables. No more tying your rings to your scrub drawstrings. Life is too short to have goosebumps all day. A PA-founded company, Scrubmates is on a quest to make your day more comfortable with super soft, functional, and affordable scrubs and underscrubs. Head to wearscrubmates.com to fight the hospital freeze. As with anything, when we are searching for clarity, it's best to start with definitions and distinctions, spotting the specific differences in this instance between moral injury and burnout. Burnout. So we've done lots of episodes and interviews focused on burnout, professional burnout, burnout in healthcare, defining it. We've done episodes where I've shared my experiences with it. and sharing strategies to prevent and overcome burnout, or even reverse that process if you're feeling like you're careening towards burnout. All of that being said, here's the straight up definition of burnout. It is a condition characterized by emotional exhaustion, depersonalization, and a sense of decreased personal accomplishment. Burnout can occur as a result of chronic workplace stress from lack of support, a heavy or high workload, significant staff turnover, lack of competency around you, and inadequate coping mechanisms. Ultimately, burnout results when the stress a person is experiencing, specifically at work, outstrips their ability to deal with stress. See episode 191 for 7 tips on completing the stress cycle in order to heal your nervous system and get you out of that constant state of sympathetic activation in that fight, flight, or freeze mode. Now, moral injury, on the other hand, originating from military contexts, moral injury is a term used to describe profound psychological distress resulting from actions that violate one's moral or ethical code. Everyone's situation is going to be different, but in healthcare and the field of medicine, moral injury often arises when clinicians are forced to act against their deeply held values due to systemic constraints. This can leave people feeling guilt, shame, and ultimately like they've been betrayed by the system and the people operating within it who are making the decisions that are affecting them day to day. An important distinction here is that burnout is about resource depletion, while moral injury is about ethical and moral conflict. I think of burnout as when you're burning through your emotional reserves, your ability to connect personally with others, and using your energy stores faster than you can replete them. Burnout is a chronic, ongoing condition. Moral injury can be acute or chronic and happens when you find out or feel that what is being asked of you and that thing is at odds with what you deeply hold to be true and what you deeply believe in. So you may be listening to this wondering, how prevalent is moral injury anyway? It is my view that it's probably more prevalent than the studies show, because I think it's become so commonplace in medicine that I think it's probably underreported. However, here's what the studies tell us. In a 2020 study performed by the AAMC, the American Association of Medical Colleagues, they found that 45% of healthcare workers felt betrayed by leaders at their institutions. We all know that COVID and the pandemic in particular was fraught with being asked to do things that violated our ethics, jeopardized our safety and mental well-being. And that, my friend, unfortunately, is just scratching the surface. Studies during the pandemic revealed increased instances of moral injury in healthcare workers due to overwhelming systemic failures and ongoing ethical dilemmas. Think back to where you were if you were working, practicing medicine during the pandemic. We were reusing masks. There was limited or homemade PPE, profound lack of testing early on, that concern that ventilators were going to need to be rationed, the canceling of elective surgeries due to the fear that we would get patients on ventilators and then not be able to extubate them successfully. There were limited resources and data was in short supply. Now, moral injury is not without downstream negative effects. It will come as no surprise to you that moral injury can lead to significant negative psychological outcomes, including PTSD, depression, and suicidality. If that is you, or if you've been struggling or not feeling like yourself, please reach out and get help. Seek the assistance of a licensed psychiatric provider. Get some therapy. It is not your fault, which we're going to talk about in detail a little later on in this episode, but also it's your life. And you can impact the outcomes of your life based on the actions or inactions that you take right now. Moral injury is also cited as the source for high turnover rates in healthcare specifically, And we've seen that. So, between the great resignation and the pandemic tipping those who were on the fence about leaving healthcare all the way over the fence and into job searching or career change mode, moral injury impacts the viability of the healthcare system at large. So, this may be something that's impacting you personally in your life or your career, but also it's impacting the number of people who are going to be willing and able to work in healthcare in the future. So, how do we know if it's moral injury or if it's burnout? I am so glad that you asked. I'm going to go through 5 different signs of moral injury, then dive into some healthcare specific situations that can result in moral injury. Have you ever wondered if your malpractice policy is providing you with enough coverage? Turns out that employers' policies protect their interest and not necessarily yours. CM&F Group offers personal liability protection that adapts to your growing, changing responsibilities, including state compacts and allowing for protection for practicing medicine across state lines. From telemedicine to license and HIPAA defense, if it's something that you need protection for, CM&F has you covered. PA students can even enjoy a completely free student policy from your first day as a student until you become a licensed PAC. In a climate where we are hyper aware of charting wording, covering ourselves, and constantly worried about practicing defensive medicine, you can't leave your liability coverage up to chance. Enjoy the peace of mind, exceptional customer service, and find the best comprehensive coverage that fits your practice at www.cmfgroup.com/the-PA-is-in or click the link in the show notes. First up, here are some signs of moral injury. First, feeling of betrayal. A deep sense of betrayal by leadership, colleagues, or the healthcare system at large. This can occur when systemic constraints or policies force actions that contradict your personal or professional values. Number 2, persistent feelings of guilt or shame. These feelings can be related to actions taken or not taken. Whether it's something that you did or did not do, or you were not able to do, this can stem from situations where providers feel they have failed to live up to their own personal ethical standards, or they've been unable to provide adequate care due to external pressures or situations. Moral distress. Experiencing intense moral distress in situations where there is a conflict between what you are compelled to do and what you believe is right. This distress often arises from systemic issues such as inadequate resources, insurance denials, or unsafe working conditions. Think about the times when you'd like to do something. You'd like to treat a patient in a specific way, but the thing that you needed, the resources that they needed, the insurance company denied the claim, or you are so understaffed that the patient suffers and waits, or worse, can't get the care that they need due to cost or logistics or availability. Fourth, anger and frustration. Persistent feelings of anger or frustration towards the healthcare system, towards leadership, or against specific policies that you see as barriers to providing good, quality, ethical care. And number 5, a sense of powerlessness. A feeling that you can't do anything to change harmful or unethical situations, leading to this profound, deep-seated sense of helplessness and despair. Now, here are a few examples of situations that may cause moral injury. Certainly, this list of examples is not exhaustive, and there could absolutely be something that is happening to you, around you, that is not a part of the things that I'm going to list here. Number 1, ethical dilemmas. Being frequently placed in situations where there is a clear ethical dilemma, such as having to choose between following hospital or organizational policies and providing the care that you think is best for the patient. Number 2, forced compromises. Regularly feeling forced to compromise on patient care due to lack of resources, bureaucratic obstacles, or institutional policies that conflict with your best clinical judgment. Number 3, unrealistic expectations. Facing unrealistic expectations from management, patients, or patients' families that cannot be met without compromising ethical standards or your own personal values. Lack of support. Experiencing a lack of support from leadership or colleagues in addressing ethical concerns or in dealing with the emotional aftermath of morally distressing situations. So now that you are on the lookout for these feelings, these situations that you might be in that might be indicating that you're living with moral injury and experiencing demands at work that are at odds with what you know to be most important to you, let's move on to what you can do about it. Despite what can often feel like a dreary and depressing landscape within the modern healthcare or disease care system, especially when we're talking about something as heavy as moral injury, I still want to be mindful to leave you with some hope and some specific action items in each episode of things that you can do. If you are saying, yes, these are the feelings that I'm feeling, yes, these are the situations that I'm being placed in, stay tuned for what you can do about it. Here's what you can do if moral injury is a stumbling block for you in life or at work. First, reflect on your values. Regularly reflect on your core values and your ethical standards. This has come up so often when it comes to defining what success looks like and what it feels like in your life that I made a free download to help you identify your core values. If you head to tracybingaman.com/values or follow the link in the show notes, you can download your free copy. It's going to walk you through a series of activities to identify your current core values. You can do it once for life and once for work if you're looking to identify your values in a professional as well as a personal setting. Identify situations where your actions are in conflict with these values and assess how often does this occur. If moral injury is happening again and again, there are a few questions to ask yourself. Is this something that I can live with? Is this something that I can change? The answers to those questions will help you to determine your best course of action going forward. If the situation is something that you can impact, change, and improve, great, get moving. If the situation is something that is beyond your control or outside of your current bandwidth, what's next? What opportunities and situations can you make that put yourself in a better situation where you're not being faced with this moral injury day in and day out? Number 2, seek peer support. One of the biggest challenges for me when I was burned out and experiencing moral injury is that I felt like I was alone. I remember feeling like that when I had an early first trimester miscarriage as well. When we feel so isolated and alone, it makes the burnout, it makes the moral injury, it makes the miscarriage, it makes whatever hard or dark or sad or bad thing that's happening heavier. When we keep things in the darkness, when we don't talk about them, it gives them more power. Seek the support and even the commiseration of those around you. Engage in discussions with trusted colleagues or mentors about morally distressing situations. Whether that's other healthcare providers or your own therapist or support team, peer support can provide validation and also help to identify systemic issues that contribute to moral injury. There's also something to be said for having a conversation with someone that says, me too. I also feel that way about what is happening here. I also feel that way about what we're doing. Number 3, advocate for change. Work with your institution to advocate for policies and practices that support ethical care and address systemic issues contributing to moral distress. Could you create change that helps to address the most common situations in your workplace that are resulting in moral injury for you right now? Engaging in efforts to improve the work environment can help mitigate those feelings of powerlessness. When you impact change, you're going to decrease your moral injury, and you're also going to help to be in the driver's seat of your organization. And you can be the one to drive change around the things that we already know matter most to you. A very practical way to start advocating for change is to raise your hand and ask for a seat at the table. Attend the meeting, join the committee, volunteer for the focus group, or be the person whose voice is heard around a specific topic. Next up, professional help. Consider seeking professional help from a mental health provider experienced in dealing with moral injury and burnout. Therapy can provide tools for coping with distress and strategies for maintaining ethical integrity, even in fast paced, high pressured, challenging environments. It's my personal belief that everyone needs a therapist. Everyone needs someone that they can call for support when things get hard and when these things crop up. There will be seasons of life where therapy is something that you need to lean on with regularity, and seasons where you need it less. Find a therapist that connects with you, who is willing to both lend an ear and also help you to develop the tools that you need to navigate life and work. And number 5, consider making a change. Listen, I've worked in healthcare long enough to know that you can't always change the situation. There are going to be many things that are beyond your control. There are things that would require too much time and energy to repair and restructure. And sometimes in those situations, you, my friend, need to save yourself. If you are on the fence about staying in a job that is morally injuring you, there are a couple of resources that I have for you. I did an episode number 193, How to Know If It's Time to Quit Your Job, where I talk about red flag signs that might nudge you towards tendering your resignation and finding a new position. There's also a guide I created called the Provider Decision Framework that will help you to weigh the pros and cons of staying in a position versus realizing that it's time for you to move on. I'll link it in the show notes. It's also tracybingaman.com/decide to download this framework that's going to help you put the pros and cons in context and help you to determine what's the next best choice for you. And before you get too hung up on your personal obligation to your patients, your colleagues, your organization, or your team, I want to give you permission to do what's best for you. Working in medicine has programmed us and taught us and trained us to put others' needs above our own. I want to give you permission, or more accurately, encourage you to give yourself permission to throw those beliefs out of a moving car window. It's okay, and it's often completely necessary to identify your own needs and meet your needs first. When we take time to figure out what matters most to us, and then we realize, this job that I formerly loved or formerly thrived at is at odds with my values, it's absolutely okay to move on. It's time for you to bless another organization and other patients with your incredible care and compassion. Not unlike the solution to burnout, the best way to address moral injury is from a top-down and bottom-up approach. Top-down with organizational interventions that occur at a system and organizational level, and bottom-up with individual strategies that you can take if you're feeling like you're in a situation where moral injury is occurring. Thank you for joining me on this crucial episode of The PA is In, where we explored the complexities of moral injury and how it differs from burnout. I hope that today's discussion has shed light on the emotional and ethical challenges that many of us face when working inside of healthcare. I also hope that it reminded you that it might be your job today, but it doesn't have to be your job tomorrow or in the future. There are other providers who will take your job and take care of those patients. Remember, acknowledging and understanding moral injury is the first step towards healing and making meaningful changes in our work environments. Could you do me a favor? If you found this episode to be valuable, please take a moment to share it with one of your colleagues or friends who might benefit from this conversation. In fact, if you've been looking for a way to connect with others and ask that question, am I truly the only one who is thinking or feeling this? Text this episode to that person and say, have you been feeling this too? Don't forget to subscribe to The PA is In. Not all of our episodes are this serious, but if you subscribe on your favorite platform, you will make sure that you never miss an episode. I would love it if you would take the time to leave a rating and a review. They are life-giving to a show of this size. And until next time, take care of yourself and each other. you're doing important work and your well-being matters most. That's all for today. This PA is out. Congratulations, you've just joined an awesome club. By listening to a full episode of The PA is In, you are officially on the Unicorn PA team. Welcome aboard. What most team members do is they subscribe to the podcast because that allows them to automatically get the latest episode of the show. The life of your dreams exists on the other side of taking action. Keep making small shifts and keep getting better. Your life will improve, your career will soar, and you will have the confidence you need to create your own success. I will see you in the next episode. This PA is out.